Hey there guys, and welcome to a Fluent English Conversation, where I choose an interesting topic and talk to you in a completely natural, unprepared, unscripted way. So I'm speaking completely off the cuff. There will be hesitations because nobody's perfect, even me. And this is a great way for you to practice your listening skills in a really relaxed way, learn some new vocabulary, and get really comfortable with what real English sounds like. So if that sounds good, sit back, get comfortable, maybe get some drinks and some snacks, and get ready to improve your English in a nice, relaxed way. I've also prepared a transcript of this conversation, which you can download and then you can use while you're watching to take notes, to translate any words you don't understand, to highlight things so that you can study and listen at the same time. Just check the description of the video or the pinned comment and you'll be able to download that yourself. The topic I've chosen for this first episode is about how I became a teacher. So I am a full-time English teacher. That is my job. I teach online and I also make English content for you guys on YouTube. And a lot of people ask me about how I became a teacher, my journey to it. So I thought it'd be interesting to start with that one. Going back, I guess, quite a long way, going back to school, I was never actually very good at English. We have these things called sets in most schools, and basically that's different groups of students at different levels. So you have like top set, middle set, bottom set, for example, if you have three. And for most of the other subjects, I was pretty academic. I was pretty good in school. So I was able to be in the top set for everything. But English actually was the one subject I wasn't very good at. And I remember specifically when I was like 10 or 11, I actually had to have some extra help and extra classes to help with my reading because my reading was actually so bad. So kind of thinking about that now, it's actually quite funny that my worst subject at school when I was very, very young actually became what I do on a daily basis. But, things change along the way. When it came to language learning in general, apart from English, I also didn't really enjoy that at school very much. We often had to study French, which was the sort of mandatory language you study as soon as you go into secondary school. And where I went to school, there was just primary school up to the age of about 10. And then we had secondary school, which was 11 to 18. So we only had two. We didn't have sort of middle and high school separately. And so we had to study French at the beginning, and then I think it was either in year 8 or year 9, so the second or third year, you had to choose a second language. And in my school at the time, it was either Italian or German. Again, funny now that I can actually speak Italian, I actually chose German because I thought it would be easier because it sounds kind of similar to English. So I thought, oh, that'll be the easy choice. Anyone who's ever studied German or speaks German will know it's not an easy choice at all, even if they simplify it for students. But that's a different conversation. So I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't do particularly well with languages. And as soon as I was able to, I dropped them in school. And I tried on and off to learn different languages after that, but then it never really stuck. I never really enjoyed it very much. And it was only when I had graduated university and went into the world of work as a designer, because I studied product design at university, I actually started studying languages again, but more just to show off to my now wife, actually. So I booked us a trip to Rome for her birthday, and I thought that in my commute to work, which was about an hour each way at the time, I could listen to some podcasts, learn a little bit of travel Italian, and kind of show off a little bit as a surprise. And actually I found out that doing it that way was really interesting, and I was actually pretty good at it, and I remembered the phrases pretty well, and it just showed me actually I had the completely wrong idea about language learning. And then we went to Rome and I really enjoyed it, and I was able to speak some basic Italian, not very much, but after 2 or 3 months I was actually able to have conversations, which I wasn't able to do with German. After studying for 2 years, we went on an exchange trip and I couldn't even have basic conversations in shops asking for things. So it's a very, very different feeling. And then after that, we went to Venice the same year. So I continued learning Italian. And then we went to Paris, so I learned a little bit of French. And then we went to Iceland, so I learned some Icelandic for that. And Bavaria, so I learned some German. And it just carried on, and then language learning kind of just became like my hobby. And it was just really fun, something I did just in my spare time while I was still working as a designer and a product developer. And it got to the point where I wasn't really enjoying my full-time job anymore, and I decided I wanted to do something with languages because I just enjoyed doing it so much. And I thought, if I'm going to quit my job and do something that I enjoy, it might as well be what my hobby is, basically. So I had a little brainstorm. I remember getting a piece of paper and sitting down with a pen and thinking, okay, what possible ways can I use languages to make enough money that I can live, and I'm not sort of just eating pot noodles like a student. And teaching was the one which seemed like the easiest to try, and didn't really require too much like sort of preparation, at least in a basic way. It was something that I could just do, have a couple of lessons, try teaching very easily after doing a teaching course. And then if I didn't like it, I could try something else, like, I don't know, translating or interpreting or something else. And actually, it's really funny because I remember having a conversation with my wife where I said, if this doesn't work, I'll try it for a couple of weeks. If I don't like it, then, we'll try something else. And I did it. And I remember after my second or third lesson, I came downstairs and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And at the time I was teaching while I was still working. So I was working a 9 to 5, and then in the evening I was coming back and doing like 2 or 3 hours of teaching, and sort of doing them both simultaneously. And then sort of, I think it was about 6 months later, I decided to leave my job and go full time as a teacher. And to become a teacher, I did a TEFL training course. So they teach you the basics of teaching and some of the basic English stuff. And then I just went into it, really. And so I have done it basically since then, which I think is about 5 or 6 years now. I'm not very good at remembering dates. And then I went full time, and I just started doing it all day, every day, and then trying different other things like making videos and writing articles about English and language learning in general. And it kind of just snowballed from there to now, where my full-time job is just teaching English, and I absolutely love it. I couldn't imagine going back and working in an office now. It's not always easy. It's can be quite demanding mentally. At the end of a long day after having lots of lessons, it's quite tiring. But I love it. I get loads of energy from it when I go into a lesson and I sit down, even when I'm feeling a little bit tired or I'm not having the best day. It always just really perks me up, and I just have a great time. And I think that's always a good sign that you're doing the right thing. And I also have learned a lot along the way, which I think is a really interesting thing. As a teacher, your students will always see you as the expert. And I do think it's good to remember that teachers are also learning along the way. A teacher that's been teaching English for like 30, 40 years will know a lot more about certain aspects of English or certain ways of teaching it that a new teacher doesn't. And for me, a lot of it has been more about learning different or better ways of teaching English rather than learning about English specifically, because that part I already know well enough, as you can imagine. But it's through teaching lessons I often find interesting ways of talking about English, of explaining ideas in a way that makes it clearer, more practical, as well as making it just a bit more interesting. So I feel like I'm constantly developing, constantly learning, which is something that's very, very important to me. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie, I love it. And so we're going to leave this conversation here for today. I hope you found it interesting and that you can go back and re-listen to it and find some interesting words and phrases that I've used. If you have any questions about any of the vocabulary that I've used, or you have a topic that you'd like me to discuss in one of these conversation lessons, then put a comment below the video and I will add it to my list, and I'll make sure I get that done for you. But have a great day learning English, have a fantastic time, and I will speak to you next time.